Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, Jericho, Jericho. Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, and the walls came tumbling down. Can you sing it with me? Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, Jericho, Jericho. Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, and the walls came a-tumbling down. What a great story I have for you today. This is Pastor Mike, and it's time for Sunday school. And look, I'm building a wall because we're talking about the city of Jericho and the Battle of Jericho. And it was one of the first battles that the people of Israel had when they went into the Promised Land. And now Jericho was a big city, and it had a big wall around it. Like a lot of old-time cities had walls. Like when I was in China, the city where I went to get one of our children had a wall built all the way around it. And so while I was there, we got to go up on the wall. Now, it was a wide wall. It was amazing to walk on, and it protected the city. And that's what the wall of Jericho did. It protected the city. And so I'm building my wall here. See it? Add a few more blocks. It's getting taller and taller. Hopefully it won't fall down. Maybe we'll sing that song one more time. Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, Jericho, Jericho. Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, and the walls came tumbling down. I got 5 more blocks. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So now listen to the story, okay? Joshua stood at Jericho, and he was prepared to fight the city. And suddenly there was a man standing with Joshua right in front of him. The man had a sword. Oh, a sword there in his hand. And Joshua asked the man, "Are you on our side or our enemies?" The man replied, "Neither. I am the commander of the Lord's army." Could you imagine standing in front of the commander of the Lord's army? What would you do? Well, Joshua bowed down and he asked, "What does the Lord want to say to me, his servant?" That's a good question, isn't it? Yeah. The commander of the Lord's army said, "Remove your sandals. Where you are standing is holy." That sounds like somebody else that was pretty important to Joshua. Remember who else had to take off their sandals because they were standing on holy ground? That was Moses. So, like I said, Jericho was a strong city with a big wall. No one was entering the city or leaving the city because they were scared of the Israelites. God told Joshua, this is what God told him: march around the city one time for 6 days. On the 7th day, march around the city 7 times. The priests will blow their trumpets and the people will shout. Then the wall will collapse. Now, those were some pretty strange and peculiar battle plans. How many armies go in with that battle plan? But Joshua obeyed God. Joshua called all the people together. The soldiers lined up. 7 priests with 7 trumpets stood behind the soldiers. More priests followed them, carrying, guess what? The Ark of the Covenant. Joshua told the people not to say a word until he said, shout. They marched around the city once and returned to camp. So they were all in line. You have to stand up. And so day 1, there's my wall. Day 1, they marched around it. And they only marched around it once. And they stopped. Now, what do you think about the people of, what do you think the people of Jericho thought about that? So day 2, they got all in line again. And what did they do? They marched. One time around the whole city. That was it. Day 3, they marched one time around the city. Day 4, what did they do? They marched one time around the city. Now, what would you be thinking if that happened to you and you witnessed this? Day 5, one time around the city. You think the people of Israel thought, this is really strange, but we'll obey God. Okay, then they finished. Then day 6 came. One time around the city. There they go. And then they left. Then day 7. Now, how many times did they say they had to walk around? They had to walk around the wall, the city 7 times. So here we go. I'm going to walk faster. 1. Are you keeping up with me? Are you standing up and walking? 2. Here we go. 3. I'm getting a little dizzy. 4. 5. Here we go. 6. Are you keeping up with me? 7. And then what did they do after that? Then Joshua told the priest to blow the trumpet. And Joshua said to the people, shout, God has given you the city. And do with me, they shouted, God has given us the city. And the people shouted it, and the trumpets blew, and guess what? The wall came tumbling down. Wow. Well, Joshua sent the 2 spies to Rahab's house, and he rescued all of the people in her home. From then on, Rahab lived with the Israelites. God defeated the city of Jericho. You know, no wall is too big for God. He can knock down any wall. And we just have to trust him and do what he says. Because we learn this memory verse all this month, Joshua 1:9. Are you ready to say it with me? Here we go. Be bold and strong. Do not be afraid or discouraged. For the Lord, your God, is with you wherever you go. Joshua 1:9. God was with the people of Israel. And you know what? God is with us. And all he wants us to do is trust in him. Now, I heard this story this week, and I want to share it with you. Now, you'll just need to listen to me, okay? And I'm going to go over here and sit down. because this is a story about a lady named Cora. Okay? So listen to this story. Cora, and that's not her real name because for security reasons, is a Christian worker in an Asian country with lots of restrictions for followers of Jesus. She had to live in a hotel and could not go many places. Still, Cora knew God wanted the people in this place to know about Jesus. She was finally given permission to teach English. Through that, she began a Bible study, which led to many people believing and trusting Jesus as their Savior. Things were going well and great until the government in her city decided Cora had to leave. Cora was confused. She believed God wanted her in that city. After all, many exciting things were already happening. Even though she didn't want to leave, she chose to trust God as He moved her to a new country. One day in her new city, Cora went to the local market. As she shopped, she heard people speaking a familiar language. It was the language of the people from her former city. Cora realized there were many people from her previous home that actually lived in her new country. Cora also recognized that they were as overwhelmed as she was in this big and new place. We are all like refugees, forced to leave the place we called home, Cora thought. Then Cora thought about something else. In this country, her people could more freely attend church and worship God. So Cora trusted God once again and started a Bible school there. On the first day, 50 students showed up. They came ready to learn more about Jesus. From there, many went into different parts of the city to share the good news with their friends and family. People who had never heard of Jesus were now hearing the good news. God changed Cora's plan, but He also changed her heart. Cora finally understood that wherever God called her to serve was home, and that she needed to trust God at all times. And that's what we need to do too. We need to trust God because He knows what's best. So don't be afraid. Don't be discouraged. For the Lord is with you. He's with you today. I'm so glad. I love you. It's been good spending some time with you. See you next week.